All right, let's dive into one of history's most intense, brilliant, and, let's be honest, terrifying figures, Alexander the Great. This is the story of a man who was worshipped like a god, but who, when you look a little closer, might have been a monster the whole time. Let's get into it.
And this quote, it just perfectly captures the whole contradiction of Alexander, right? On one hand, you have this image he built of a charismatic, beautiful, almost divine hero. But his actions, they were the actions of a relentless and absolutely brutal conqueror. He's the kind of guy who looks like he has a 10-step skincare routine, but would burn your city to the ground as a light workout.
I mean, his rise to power was just ridiculously fast. At 12, he was already an expert fighter. By 16, he's leading armies into battle. And at 20, boom, he's the king. You've probably heard the story of him taming the wild horse, Bucephalus, this beast that nobody else could get near. Well, that was an early sign. People saw that and knew, okay, this kid is different. And they were right. He was basically a walking prophecy with some very, very serious anger issues. So let's talk about what was fueling all this. What was going on in his head that turned this young prince into a force that would just steamroll the known world? Well, it all starts with a very specific and kind of unhealthy obsession. He was completely fixated on the Greek hero Achilles. And I don't mean he just admired the guy. He wanted to be him. He literally carried a copy of the Iliad with him everywhere he went, modeling his entire vibe, his look, his attitude, his burning desire for fame that would last forever on this mythological warrior. It wasn't just inspiration. It was like he was trying to wear Achilles' identity like a costume. So, at age 20, his father, King Philip, is assassinated. Now, for most people, this would be a tragedy. For Alexander, it was a career opportunity. He moved with this terrifying efficiency. Step 1, execute any potential rivals to the throne, and yet that included family members. Step 2, completely obliterate any city that even thought about challenging him. He wasn't just inheriting a kingdom, he was seizing it, and he was using it as a launchpad for a global takeover. With Macedonia locked down, he immediately looks for a bigger prize. To him, his home kingdom felt like a starter apartment he was ready to move out of. He wanted the whole map, and he decided to start with the biggest kid on the block, the massive Persian Empire. And he just starts winning. It's like it was all pre-written. He crosses into Asia, and the first major piece of territory, Asia Minor, he just keeps rolling south. Syria barely puts up a fight. And by the time he gets to Egypt, they don't even bother fighting. They literally throw the doors open, hail him as a liberator from Persian rule, and right away, they declare him a pharaoh, a living god on earth. And just like that, in a few short years, the entire western half of the Persian Empire was his. The world had never seen anything move that fast. While he's in Egypt, he takes a little trip out to the Oracle of Siwa, a super important holy site. And there, the story goes that the priests greet him as the son of the head god himself, Zeus. Now think about it. For a guy in his early 20s who already has a massive ego, this isn't just a compliment, it's a divine permission slip. His personal ambition was now a holy war, and his self-belief went from just confidence to a full-blown god complex. It was a change that would warp everything that happened next. After the Persian king Darius III is finally defeated and then killed by his own men, Alexander is the undisputed king of Persia. But he didn't just want to rule the empire. No, he wanted to become the empire. And the change was dramatic. The tough, battle-worn Macedonian generals started to fade away. And in his place, you get this Persian-style god king. We're talking gold robes, eyeliner, the whole deal. He even starts demanding that his own Macedonian soldiers perform prostration, bowing down on the ground before him. These guys, who had followed him through hell and back, started looking at him and thinking, who is this guy? So you've got this tension just simmering. It's a powder keg, really. Alexander's new god persona versus his old Macedonian roots. And at one banquet,
fueled by power, ego, and a whole lot of wine, that powder keg finally exploded. The truth bomb came from Clytus the Black. He was a veteran commander, a close friend, a guy who had literally saved Alexander's life in battle. And Clytus, probably a few drinks in and just fed up, says what everyone else is too scared to say. That Alexander has forgotten where he came from, forgotten his real father, and is acting like a god. And Alexander just snaps. He's drunk, he's emotional, he's been told he's a god. He doesn't argue, he doesn't yell back. He grabs a spear from a bodyguard and he runs his old friend through, kills him, right there in the middle of dinner. The whole room just goes dead silent. The second it happens, the wine-fueled rage disappears, and it's replaced by this crushing, absolute horror. He collapses, weeping, apparently trying to kill himself with the same spear. He doesn't eat for days. He realized he didn't just kill a friend. He killed the last person on Earth who knew him before he became this. But here's the thing about Alexander. His only cure for emotional pain was more war, more conquest, more marching. To run away from his guilt, he pushed his army even further east, over mountains and across deserts, all the way to what they considered the edge of the world, India. After a truly brutal battle in India against a king who had war elephants, Alexander, of course, wanted to keep going. But his army was just done. They'd marched thousands of miles, they'd fought against massive empires, and they had put up with his ego. They were exhausted, they were homesick, and they finally just said no. For the first time in his life, Alexander faced a full-on mutiny. His own men refused to take another step. Totally humiliated, he finally agrees to turn back. But the journey home and his last days were just as bizarre and chaotic as the rest of his life, leading to one of the weirdest endings you'll find in the history books. He gets back to the city of Babylon, and he immediately starts planning new conquests, while also partying nonstop. Then, after one particularly epic drinking binge, he gets a fever. And a few days later, he's dead. He was only 32 years old. As he's lying on his deathbed, his generals all gather around and ask the most important question imaginable. To whom do you leave your empire? And Alexander, barely able to speak, whispers his last words. To the strongest. It was the coldest mic drop in history. It was basically a guarantee that the world he had just conquered was about to tear itself apart. And what a legacy it was. He died undefeated in battle, which is incredible. His empire immediately shattered into pieces as his generals started a 40-year civil war. And in one final, truly absurd twist, his body was preserved for its trip back home in a vat of honey. You can't make this stuff up. So what do you do with a guy like that? Is he a hero? A military genius who connected East and West? Is he a monster? A narcissistic tyrant who caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands? Or maybe he's something else entirely. Just a beautiful, charismatic, unstoppable disaster whose legacy is as complicated and messy as he was.